If you're a normal person, chances are you don't have infinite amounts of hours to unlock everything that you might need for Warzone when it releases this December. Having the right weapons and attachments for things that are going to perform well in Warzone is a great way to start the new map Urzikstan, and a good way to guarantee that you're going to have a decent time when you drop in on day one. So whether you're somebody who just simply doesn't have a huge amount of time to level up your weapons in preparation for Warzone, someone who hasn't purchased Modern Warfare 3 and wants to level up the guns within Warzone, or you just want to know what's going to be good for Warzone, this video is going to solve that for you. Today I'm going to bring you guys all of the weapons and attachments that I think are going to be meta for Warzone. Not only the guns themselves that I think are going to make a huge impact, but there are in fact some very good attachments with lots of upsides that I think are going to completely change how Warzone functions. Some of these attachments I think are going to be fundamentally meta from day one of Warzone 3.0 to the very end of it, and I think you're going to need them as soon as humanly possible. Now, the list I've curated tries to give you guys sort of the best of everything. Weapons that I think are fundamental to how Warzone plays, so your sort of long range, your medium range, and your close range. And of course, for those of you who are interested in snipers, there are obvious choices there too. I'm not going to give you a priority order, so to speak, but I'm just going to explain the benefits of each individual weapon and why I feel you should unlock them, and that way you can kind of come to your own conclusions as to which ones you're going to prioritize. There aren't many weapons in this list, which is great, and most of them actually unlock at level 4, which is when you get to create a class. And bearing in mind, you get all of your attachments from Modern Warfare 2 as well if you happen to have carried those over. So this should be fairly straightforward and will actually reduce the amount of time that you're going to be spending grinding in the game to make sure that you're ready for Warzone on day one. Then we'll talk about some of those attachments. The first weapon on my list is the Holger, and you get this at level 37, and the Holger 556 in my view is going to be the long-range shooter in Warzone. Now, the MCW is definitely a close option here, but the Holger effectively has similar accuracy of the MCW, whilst having substantially more damage output. You can also put some pretty large magazines on this thing. So effectively, you're going to have a long-range option with the Holger at level 37 in the game. Unlock this weapon and try and grind up as many attachments as you can, and I honestly think this will be the go-to long to medium range weapon when day one of Warzone hits. The second weapon I would recommend unlocking in the assault rifle category is the MTZ-556 at level 12. Now, whilst the Holger will certainly suit your medium to long range AR engagements, I feel the MTZ-556 is going to be the go-to medium to short range assault rifle. And this is primarily down to the fact that it's fairly accurate but has a much blisteringly faster rate of fire, which gives it really good damage output even in the current version of multiplayer. You can think of the Holger as the general more long-range Grau 556 weapon, and the MTZ something a little bit more like the close to medium-range AK-47. Now, whilst the MTZ is definitely not as punchy as something like an AK, the sheer volume of fire rate I think is something that's going to be a really redeeming factor, and definitely something I can see being quite powerful on the future Resurgence maps when they return. Now, if you happen to have a bit more time in the AR category, there is a bit of a wild card here, which is the DG58. Now, whilst I really recommend focusing on the Holger and the MTZ if you're somebody who has more time, the DG58 could be a valid option. It's been a while since we've seen 3-round bursts do pretty much anything really in the Warzone space, and I called it a wild card because it could either be really, really good or really, really bad, and chances are there won't be much in between. So like I say, if you got a bit more time, maybe a little bit more effort on the side, unlock the DG58 and try and rank that up too. You might have some good opportunities to get some good kills with it in Warzone, but it might not go well, so don't quote me on this one. This is a wild card for a reason. We'll see how it goes. If you're somebody who is interested in the battle rifle category, I think the MTZ-762 at level 25 is a huge weapon that I think could be very, very good. Because of the extended time to kill in Warzone, and the fact that you now will be able to move faster in Warzone when the integration occurs, having something that packs a punch and does a huge amount of damage output in short windows is something I feel will be in high demand. I think the MTZ-762 with the right attachments could be a decent medium-range heavy hitter, and I would bank on this gun possibly ending up being in the meta on day one. Moving on to SMGs, which is most definitely one of the most important categories. There are two SMGs at play here that you need to know about. One of them I would argue is the most important, the other I would argue is the second most important. The Rival 9, which you unlock at level 25 within Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3 or Warzone, is without a doubt going to be the meta SMG. This is the fast-firing, fast rate of fire, high mobility gun that suits any single assault rifle or battle rifle. This is effectively the perfect CQB secondary with a decent sized magazine, good damage output, and it's actually relatively quick on mobility as well. If you primarily main assault rifles or primarily main battle rifles within Warzone, then this is going to be the go-to secondary. I can see this without a doubt being the top dog on day one, and would highly recommend you focus on leveling it up. On the flip side of that coin, we have the Striker, which you unlock at level 4 in multiplayer, which I think is definitely worth leveling up. Now, the Striker is not as mobile as the Rival 9, and it has a much slower rate of fire, but it does pack a reasonably good punch, and I can see the Striker being the perfect secondary for something like a sniper rifle, because the Striker is much more accurate than the Rival 9, and that ultimately means that if you need something closer to medium-ish, the Striker is a perfect sniper support or marksman rifle support secondary. I would highly recommend unlocking the Striker and leveling it up, especially if you're somebody who likes to main snipers, or quick-firing snipers, or heavy-firing snipers, because this will be something that gives you a bit of diversity when you switch to your secondary. It's good up close, but it might also do decently well at medium range too. In the LMG category, I highly recommend unlocking the PKP and focusing on that a bit. This is a level 4 weapon, so you get it pretty much straight away. But the great thing about the PKP is that this thing hits like a bus. It is an absolute heavy hitter. It is completely ludicrous, and I think it was unreal when I played Warzone over at Call of Duty Next in LA. Without a doubt, this was the gun that I felt was going to be meta on day one, and it also has aftermarket part options to convert it into more of an assault rifle and less of an LMG. I can see this being a top shot, heavy hitter on day one. I would highly recommend you focus on it as soon as you can. Then finally, we have the AMR, which is the one-shot sniper rifle in Modern Warfare 3. Now, we don't know how they're going to redesign the Modern Warfare 2 sniper rifles to fit into Warzone's new one-shot headshot capability, but we know for a fact that the AMR is always going to one-shot. This is once again a gun you unlock instantly at level 4, and I think is going to be a huge weapon to have. Naturally, if you're somebody who doesn't snipe, you don't have to worry about this, but if you're even remotely interested in snipers, the AMR is the gun to focus on. Those are all of the guns that I have to list for now, but it should be noted that due to Modern Warfare 3's armory system, you can unlock both certain weapons, certain attachments, and certain aftermarket parts by simply completing daily challenges. I personally would focus on unlocking the aftermarket parts or specific attachments that I'm going to mention shortly, because this is a good way to get unlocks whilst you're still just doing your normal day-to-day. I can see some of these aftermarket part conversion kits potentially creating really good hybrid weapons, like I mentioned with the PKP kind of turning into an assault rifle, and I feel like some of these are going to be extremely good in Warzone 3. Next up, let's talk attachments, because there are some attachments within Modern Warfare 3 that work radically differently to what we've seen in Modern Warfare 2. Some of them have multiple upsides with less downsides, and some of them have upsides that are very beneficial without having the same constraints as the Modern Warfare 2 attachment counterparts. So I would highly recommend you guys check this out. Some of these attachments are really good. Now, you can unlock these by default by getting certain weapons to certain levels, which I will explain in detail, but you can also find some of these in the armory unlocks on your daily challenges. So if you happen to catch one of them, which I say is very useful, I would highly recommend activating it as your unlock. The first one is without a doubt the Sonic Suppressor, and this is a universal suppressor for all assault rifles in Warzone. You unlock this by getting the Holger 556 to level 16, but the reason this is so good is because it gets you off of the radar with red dots, which does feature in the new version of Warzone, and increases your bullet velocity and range without penalizing your aim down sight speed. Now, traditionally in most Call of Duties, if you increase the bullet velocity of a weapon, you instantly lose ADS, but this is not the case with the Sonic Suppressor. Again, level 16 on the Holger 556, this will be the meta go-to suppressor for almost all long-range ARs, and it works across all of them. Next is the Microtherm Optic, and you can unlock this by getting to level 19 on the AMR-9 SMG, or in the Armory unlocks as well. Now, thermal optics of the past have primarily been a problem like the SZ Holotherm, because they add tons of visual recoil to your weapon and make it harder to shoot. This is not the case with the Microtherm. The Microtherm actually reduces the amount of visual recoil on screen, whilst also having a very clean thermal optic. So if you're somebody who prefers a thermal or needs it to see targets at longer distances, this is going to be the go-to on day one. I think this has a lot of potential in Warzone, and I would highly recommend looking into it. If you're somebody who loves sniping, these next two are for you. There is the Sonic Suppressor XL, which is level 5 on the AMR sniper rifle, which much like the Sonic Suppressor on the assault rifles, adds bullet velocity and range without an ADS penalty, which is huge for snipers, meaning that not only will you be able to quickscope, but you're able to do so with a very large amount of bullet velocity. Likewise, the 50 caliber high grain, which is a level 4 unlock on the AMR, is also another huge BV increase. Bullet velocity is without a doubt one of the most critical functions of any sniper, and it allows you to hit further targets even easier, so I would highly recommend both the Sonic Suppressor XL at level 5 and the 50 cal high grain, which is effectively high velocity ammunition, at level 4. The final attachment I think you should unlock is perfect for medium to close range heavy hitters on assault rifles and battle rifles, and that is the ELR Backfire. You get this by unlocking it at level 15 on the MTZ-556, and the incredible thing about this thing is that it adds a huge amount of recoil control to the weapon, with the only penalty being bullet velocity and range. It doesn't slow down your ADS speed, which is a huge bonus for medium to close range weapons that you want to be quick, snappy, and hit heavily. Now, if you're using something at a closer to medium range, bullet velocity and range generally matters less, but for the fact that this has such a huge improvement on gun control, chances are you'll be able to balance out those statistics by improving things elsewhere, like high velocity ammunition. I think this attachment is going to be the go-to compensator within the game, so I would highly recommend checking it out. So folks, those are the things I think you should focus on unlocking in Warzone for the Modern Warfare 3 integration. There's a really good spread of things here, and I think you can choose certain ones to focus on first, which is really nice if you're somebody who doesn't have a huge amount of time, but if you're somebody who does, you can even go as far as unlocking specific attachments, which I feel are beneficial. Ultimately, I'm not going to give you a priority list for these things because everybody's time is subjective and different, and if you're somebody with lots of time, you could probably do this entire list, and if you're somebody with not a huge amount of time, there will hopefully be some hidden gems within this list for you to work on. If you found this video useful, please do drop a like and subscribe. We'll be covering everything related to Warzone's Modern Warfare 3 integration, and we're on the road to 200k as well. As always folks, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.